homework situation here?
So clearly, we all have to butt our heads and see what is the best way we can make sure that there is some form of curriculum recovery for these learners, so that they don't lose out in more learning and teaching time, which in effect, in the long run, would either make them unemployable or employable in low wage and low skills jobs. So it's important that we all butt heads as parents, as teachers, as a sector, and as society at large to put in mechanisms in place that can best work for them. And I think the first thing that we need to do is one, scrap the rotational system immediately, which will avoid having even more homework, if I can put it that way, in the future. But secondly, ensure that the department gives support to teachers and schools in ensuring that learners are able to cover that curriculum to alleviate the burden not only just on the parents, but on the learners themselves.
Okay, so obviously this all comes in light of the fact that COVID, the pandemic really pushed us back as far as learning, schooling, and everything else in our lives is concerned. How much schooling time have we lost? Real schooling time. And how much time is it going to take for us to catch up? Or does it not work that way? Is it really about being just that much more focused now that it's almost back to normal?
Look, first and foremost, we've lost generally about 40% of learning and teaching time across the sector of basic education. But more so than anything is that we've lost between 50 to 80% in no-fee paying schools, which we all know are in poor, rural, and township communities. In an education system that is already unequal, this rotational system has basically perpetuated a form of inequality in itself. And it's going to take us between 10 and 15 years for these learners to recover. I mean, a grade 3 learner by June this year will only know what a grade 2 learner knew in 2019, according to research done by Expose. And so this does require us not just to focus, but to see how do we best catch up the curriculum with tweaking it to ensure that it's responsive to the economic needs, the skills demand, and preparing learners for them either to further study or utilize the skills that they would have learned at a basic level to advance and be employable or even create their own employment. So it's going to require not just focus, but it's going to require a bit of time and effort and extra hours for us to ensure that at least we don't deprive these learners the opportunity to be successful in life.
Bax, will the children be able to cope with the extra pressure?
Repeat that again.
Do you believe that the learners will be able to cope with the extra pressure put on them, the learners and the teachers?
That's why it's very important for us to have psychosocial support in collaboration with departments such as social development and ensuring that the Department of Basic Education does give the support required to its various districts, teachers, and learners, and give them the opportunity that when they are struggling or under pressure, there is some form of recourse. Obviously, there's no one size fits all, and I think if an effort is made to give that psychosocial support for learners that could be struggling, especially during us coming out of a very difficult pandemic where many of them have already lost, loved ones, and now they've got the pressure of schooling, we need to ensure that we ramp up that type of support.
So we talk about three issues here, three changes planned for schools in South Africa. You've touched on one or two as well. What would be the other plans? And I'm kind of wondering about learners being, able to, I guess the one issue that comes to mind for me immediately is connectivity, data availability, very especially in the rural schools, laptops. I mean, that all comes at a huge cost. Do we have the resources to do that?
Look, if money is prudently spent and there's less budget cuts that are done, especially from basic education to failed SOEs and other things, I think there will be money and resources to do that. I think it's very important, first and foremost, for us to develop an innovative home school policy. This would take a lot of pressure off an overburdened department and solve a variety of challenges such as teacher shortages, pupils, transport shortages, and yearly placement difficulties. And I've initially asked a question in the portfolio committee to the department to give us a breakdown of how many schools actually have network connectivity issues. Leave the fact that there's still a data challenge, but just network connectivity issues and what is being done about that. And we start doing that. Two, we roll out mechanisms of an online school policy so that we alleviate the pressure on the physical schooling system and develop a curriculum that will be responsive to that. And ensure that they have access to devices and data to be able to do that, or internet. And that is possible so long as you ensure that there aren't any budget cuts. One, two, money is used prudently. You don't go build a 20 million rand school for 40 million, but you channel that type of money to developing systems that can actually work. And secondly, we also need to ensure that we adapt the curriculum to meet the needs of economy. And we need to revise key subject areas and encourage people to enroll in those so that we ensure that whatever we're producing, we're trying to ramp up on those key subjects and those key skills that we need to do and get on. And how we get to do that is to ensure that the vacancy rate of teachers, especially skilled teachers, is filled with urgency, because currently there's a moratorium on that. And, we can't appoint certain individuals to participate in our sector. So these are some of the challenges that are there, but we can mitigate them by putting these solutions on the table.
Okay, we're also talking increased accessibility. I should imagine that talks directly to learners with disabilities. Are our schooling systems and teachers ready to take this on? Previously, children with any form of a disability had to go to a special school. How are teachers and other learners in the class going to cope with something like this? Because children with disabilities do need individualized tuition or extra time or more time than regular schoolgoers.
Look, first and foremost, we need to understand the principle. The principle is that nobody can be discriminated against accessing a basic human right of education based on creed, color, disability, whatever it is. So it's important for us to establish that to begin with. And learners with disabilities are able, in their own right, to ensure that they access education. And it's important that we make sure that these institutions and these schools are one, disability friendly. And there's a model that the department uses of the different types of special needs schools there are. There are learners with intellectual severe disabilities. There are learners that have physical disabilities. So learners actually vary in terms of disabilities themselves. So they actually can be accommodated in the normal school system so long as there are mechanisms in place to identify what type of learners can actually go to either maybe a combined school, because there are various types of schooling that can actually we go through, or full service schools, as we call them, that learners with disabilities can attend. So I'm sure that it's in reference to those types of schools, such as full service schools that need to be disability friendly, and various types of schools, so that a learner does not have to be taken away, for example, from their parents to be housed in a hostel for them to access basic education because they have to attend a special school, unless it's in circumstances where that particular support can't be given. For example, learners with severe intellectual disabilities, you accommodate them differently compared to learners with physical disabilities. So I think in terms of that context, we need to understand that it's not across the board, in my understanding, that it will be applied. But I think it's based on the type of disability a learner will then have, and that school that is accessible to them, how can they best assist? If not, then they will be channeled to the special needs schools that are actually properly set up in many instances, but just require support from government to ensure that they are fully functional.
Okay, finally, my final question/statement is that at a government Lehotla on Friday past, Angie Motsecha said that there's a need to provide all learners and educators with the necessary technological devices that they are prepared to work for in the 21st century. She also went on to say that the department is developing a new program for online schooling and distance learning, with plans to give every teacher in the country a laptop before her term, Motsecha's term, ends, her term in office ends. This is to align with the previous mandate by Cyril Ramaphosa to give every child learning materials on a digital device. Are you comfortable that this is in the pipeline, that it is going to happen, that we're not going to have issues around tenderpreneurs and all such nonsense, that this is once again going to delay the process, or that the money just doesn't see the light of day?
Look, first and foremost, I think the idea is a good one to ensure that we develop teachers. I mean, we always argue that we need quality teaching in the classroom, and we must develop teachers for them to be able and give them the necessary resources for them to be able to execute that mandate. But what I want to outline is that you can't solely just give somebody a device and then you put, Wi-Fi there and
absolutely
work for themselves. One, I mean, I've been in school visits in 4 provinces. I'm in the Western Cape, Northern Cape, and Gauteng this week. And you find that in every single school that we visited, right, the Wi-Fi only is in the admin block, but teachers in the classroom actually don't have access to that. So you need to have a holistic approach. In some instances, teachers have been given devices, but in Zweli, for example, in Mount Frere, that particular village that's got 4 schools, there's no network there. So we must be able to have a collaborative approach to say that the Department of Communications, how do we make sure that these schools that have network, 1. 2, when we do provide Wi-Fi, it actually is accessible for all in the classroom for the teachers to be able to execute quality teaching learning. And thirdly, it's important for us to have very clear eye on how these devices are procured and where they're procured from and what are the amounts. I mentioned earlier that there's a school in Mpumalanga, for example, that has been built for 36 million on a wetland when it was supposed to be built on for 15 million rand, and it was supposed to be built in a proper place. So when we're acquiring and procuring these things, we should not do it at double, triple the extent in which we're supposed to do them for. And that's where we come in as members of parliament in the opposition to ensure that we hold government to account and ensure that they procure things in the correct way. And it's important for us to look at that with a naked eye and Treasury to act through consequent management for implementing agents that do type of work, type of extortion in infrastructure or type of corruption and theft for money that is meant to develop our education system. So I do fear that because we've seen in Gauteng during the during the PPE scandal that they did deep cleaning for 38 million. I mean, really, this money is meant to develop our education system. It's meant to be responsive to the curriculum and ensure that learners get the best outcomes. So I think there's more to it than just sharing words of these are the 3-point things that need to change. There must be an implementation plan. There must be a collaborative approach because the Department of Basic Education can't do that alone. It requires other departments to do that as well to ensure that it supports its plan of rolling out this online digital space. And then lastly, invite experts, invite University of Cape Town that's already rolled out an online school. Invite people that have already rolled out this online school.
Okay. Baxolile Nodada, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Lots of good things to look forward to as far as our learners are concerned. If everything is in place and if there's no, like you said, scandals, tenderpreneurs, issues, then hopefully there's a bright future for our learners going ahead. Bax, thank you indeed for your time. You are the DAMP for education, and we hope and pray everything works according to plan. Go well, good luck, and thank you for being on the show this morning.
Thank you so much, Elaine. Thank you to your listeners as well.
3:10, way over a sign of time. A big thank you to Nasreen Naidu, controller and producer of the show. Please remember all of your safety protocols on the roads and COVID as well. Till tomorrow morning at the same time. As always, Assalamu alaikum and Khuda Hafiz from me.